Hi everyone, welcome back to Novel Nomad and welcome to my Adelaide Writers Week TBR for 2019. Now Adelaide Writers Week is a literary festival that occurs every year during the Adelaide Festival, which is in early March. This year it is running from the 2nd to the 7th of March and they have a theme every year, and this year's theme is telling truths. So it is quite an interesting theme. They've had history themes in the past and different ideas that they want to express, but this year it is telling truths, seeking truth and also telling a variant of truth, or really discovering the truth behind the hype in the media. So I think it's quite a curious one. I'm very interested to go to many of the multi-panelled sessions that they have on, but we haven't got the official program yet. By the time this video goes up, it will be out, so I'll link that down below. But I am still waiting to have a look what wonderful sessions I'll be able to attend. But what I thought I would do is they have released a tentative list of all the authors that are signed up to attend for this year's Writers' Week. I do have some of their titles that I have started reading and I will be reading throughout the month of February. Starting off, we have Marcus Zusak. Now he is the author of The Book Thief, a worldwide phenomenon. It's been all over BookTube, but if you haven't heard of it, I will link it down below. But I also have some of his other books. His earlier book than The Book Thief is The Messenger, which is set in an Australian rural town about a guy who's a bit of a bogan. He's a dropout, dropkick. He really has no direction in his life. He's just driving a cab, hanging out with his mates and doing basically nothing until he actually saves people from a bank robbery, that he starts to get delivered aces, playing cards with different directions written on them and different tasks that he has to do. And it's really interesting. I've actually already read this one because I wanted to start early on my Adelaide Writers Week TBR. So I've already finished this one. I really recommend it. I thought it was very refreshing. It was very different from what I had been reading at the time, and it is very different from The Book Thief as well. It's very heavily Australian. It's got a very heavy Australian voice. It is really representative of everyone, because everyone has a point in their life where they don't know what to do with themselves and they don't know which direction to go in next. And this was really wonderful in portraying that in a different way. Next up is Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton. This one's getting a lot of hype in Australia at the moment. I'm not sure about overseas, but it is being hugely successful in the Australian market. It follows a young boy whose father dies and he has to survive with a heroin addicted mother, a drug dealer who comes around all the time, a mute brother, and realizing that he probably has met the love of his life. So it is one of those huge stories where you get to follow this young person through a very critical stage in their life, and I cannot wait to get to this one with all the hype that's going around. I'm keeping my expectations a little bit lowered and not trying to read too much into all the reviews, because I want to go into this one completely clean slate and see what I think. Next is one that I'm hugely excited for, and that is Essie Eugene. She was actually shortlisted. Washington Black, I should say, was actually shortlisted for not only the Man Booker but the Orange Prize. So it's got a lot of acclaim flying around it. It sounds really fascinating, but I have to just say the top part of the blurb is brilliant. It just hooked me straight away, and all it says is escape is only the beginning. And of course it follows two very eccentric brothers who take over a plantation in Barbados, and one of them actually wants the black slave Washington Black to help him create a groundbreaking aerial machine. So I thought that was such an interesting premise, but also to have this kind of temptation for escape. So I think it's just brilliant. And I also have her other book, which I found in a secondhand bookstore. Funny enough, perfect timing when I just got the list had just come out of the authors, and it's Half-Blood Blues. This is an earlier one set in Berlin about the black community within Berlin. That was very much relegated to the shadows and was never actually recorded as being there, because like many minorities in Nazi Germany, they weren't true Germans. So I'm going to find this endlessly interesting, but I don't know which one to read. I think I'm going to start with Washington Black because I think that's the one they're going to be talking about and promoting, but if I get time, I'm definitely going to read Half-Blood Blues. Continuing in the fiction line, there will be also attending Ahmed Sadavi and his Frankenstein in Baghdad. I was lucky enough to snag an ARC of this one, so I'm not sure what to expect with this one. I do love Frankenstein, so I'm going into this one completely blind. But from what it says, a literary horror from war-torn Iraq. So I'm not sure if it is a rough retelling of Frankenstein set in Iraq. It possibly is from the looks of the blurb, but we'll see how it goes because I have such an endearing love for Frankenstein. I want to see if the same message is pulled across and if it is translated well, because the original, the classic, that's probably one of my favourite classics of all time. Next we have Muhammad Hanif's Redbirds. This is once again an art copy, so that is the beautiful typography on the title, and it does have the red bird with the barbed wire in its mouth on the cover as well. But this is quite interesting. This once again is set in the Middle East. It's about a young boy whose brother disappears, goes off to work and never comes back. His parents have them living in a refugee camp and they're arguing horribly, and his dog is having a very bad day. But on top of this, a young American pilot lands not far and takes refuge in this refugee camp, but they soon find out that the pilot was sent to bomb the camp itself. So I find it quite interesting to see where this takes it, because obviously it's setting it up for a bit of a boiling pot, but also to have it from a young boy's perspective within this narrative is going to be quite interesting. So we'll see where that one takes me. And of course I am reading The Lost Man by Jane Harper. This is of course Jane Harper, who wrote The Dry and also wrote Forces of Nature, but The Lost Man is in fact, to my surprise, because I've already started reading this one, is not set in Aaron Falk's world. This is set in rural Queensland, which is a huge area of land. It is absolutely massive, and it is set on an outback station. So what many people imagine what the outback would look like. This is an outback farming station, a cattle station, so it is over huge areas of land. And it started quite horrifically horrifying. It talks about a man who was for some reason dying of dehydration and heat stroke and heat exhaustion following the shade around this tomb in the middle of the outback, and it's just such a dramatic beginning. It was perfect. It's very freaky so far, and I'm not sure if there's going to be a very heavy police presence, or if we're going to follow the police detective, or if we're more going to follow the family and the two other brothers of the one who died. So I'm going to be very curious to see what happened. It's setting it up really well so far in that classic Australian rural atmospheric magic that Jane Harper knows how to cast so well. But I am enjoying this one, and she's going to be attending Adelaide Writers Week, so I'm definitely going to get this one signed. Okay, moving on. I do have another one that I definitely want to be able to read for Adelaide Writers Week, but some of the other ones after that I'm probably just going to dive in and read different sections or read as much as I can before, just to get an idea of what the author is talking about, and so when I attend the different events I will kind of be on board of their talks. And so the one I definitely want to read is Any Other Day by Lee Sales. Now Lee Sales is quite a prominent journalist in Australia, and this is quite interesting because she suffers quite a traumatic experience during her line of work, and she basically talks about how to get back into the field and get back to herself and discover that she has become a new person in a way. So I think it's going to be brilliant. From all reports, from what I've heard from my very well-read friends who have read this already, they are loving it. So I just can't wait to read this one and sink my teeth into it. And it's funny, I know Lee Sales, I've seen her on TV before, but I think when you read someone's words and you read their story, you just get to know them that little bit more personally, and I think it's going to be so great to just open up this very strong, independent woman to me, and I'm just going to love and respect her all the more. Alright, so rest of these are going to be non-fiction, starting with the Lee Sales one, and obviously my absolute love is going to be You Daughters of Freedom by Claire Wright. She is a historian and she has now written in honour of women's suffrage. Last year she did publish this one. So what I love about this book is, whilst it is about the women's suffrage movement in Australia, but it's also about the women's suffrage movement in UK and going further abroad from there, because she follows all these Australian women who not only won suffrage. For example, South Australia, the women won the right to vote in 1890s, and so then all the women who won suffrage for Australia then went to England to help with a women's campaign over there, and you just find out about what these amazing women did to help win the vote for women. And so I cannot wait to read this book. It is huge and I don't expect I'll be able to finish all of it with all the other books that I'll be reading in the next month, but I can't wait. I'm so excited. I think it's going to be a brilliant read, and also to be able to get to meet Claire Wright, because I love meeting historians because they're just so endlessly fascinating. Next we have Sohaila Abudali's What We Talk About When We Talk About Rape. This, and also another one that I don't have yet but I really want to get, which is called Rage Becomes Her. Those are two books that are going to be really interesting, considering the new movement, obviously the Me Too movement that occurred last year, and just different more female focused and female power movements that occurred in 2008. And to see, these books are recently published. Obviously they're still addressing a lot of problems that are inherent within societies, and just to see how we can move on from there. So I think this is a really great topic to have and to address in 2019 after the Me Too movement. So I'm definitely want to read at least a few chapters of this one, and once I get my hand on and Rage Becomes Her, I'm definitely going to read those two, because there's actually going to be an evening talk on this and it's going to be brilliant. I suspect it's going to be absolutely amazing. Claire Wright will be in attendance for that one. So it's just going to be looking at how women in the past and present have been changed in society and what we can do to further change society. Brilliant. And next we have Always Another Country by Salinger. This is about a woman's being exiled from her own country and seeking refuge, and her journey to America. And I think this is going to be very pertinent because of the huge debate that surrounds refugees not only in Australia but around the world. And I think it'll be a very curious title to really explore the idea of telling truths in Adelaide Writers Week. So another brilliant non-fiction, just to sink my teeth into a few chapters. Hopefully I can get into quite a bit of it, but I just can't wait to hear these people talk about their own stories and talk about their process of bringing it to the book format and why they think it is relevant in today's society, which it definitely is. And especially coming from these marginalised voices, I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant session. Alright, so that is my rather heavy selection for my Adelaide Writers Week TBR, and that's going to be taking place mostly through February. I do have a plan so far, but hopefully I get to sneak in another few of these excellent non-fiction reads around my fiction reads during that month. So if you're going to be attending Adelaide Writers Week, let me know down below, or if there's any authors that you'd love to hear from, also tell me down below. I cannot wait to see these authors and report back on how amazing these sessions are. I'm going to see if I can do a little bit more filming this year on the actual Adelaide Writers Week whilst I'm there, but I'll leave you there because I have to go do some reading right now. And I'll see you next time. Bye!